Alright, it's baseball in February. Used to be once the Caribbean Series was over, first week of February, nothing was going on in baseball around the world. When you said baseball in February, it brought up images of snow starting to melt on baseball fields up north, pitchers and catchers reporting for spring training in MLB. And that's about it. The Caribbean Series was the end-all tournament for winter baseball and the only major international club championship. That is going on right now in Mexico. Champion ball clubs from Mexico, Venezuela, Dominican Republic, and Puerto Rico, plus one oddball team from Japan, going on till Friday. Check that out while you can, if you can. It's still the biggest annual winter baseball event in the world. From the end of the World Series and other league championship series at the start of November, till the restart of those same leagues in March and April, nothing is bigger than the Caribbean Series. But now it's got company. The Series of the Americas just ended last Thursday. Mostly teams that had previously taken part in the Caribbean Series, but are now being left out. Cuba, Colombia, Panama, Nicaragua, Curacao, Argentina, all played a 5-game round robin, followed by a semifinal and final round last week in Nicaragua. And the tournament was a success. All games were streamed on a single YouTube channel. Thousands, even tens of thousands, watching the live streams. Stadiums packed for games involving Nicaragua. On the downside, in the games where Nicaragua was not one of the teams playing, the stands were noticeably empty. And they were lucky that Team Nicaragua reached the championship game, so they could have a full house for the finale. I don't know how many spectators would have shown up had it been Cuba versus Curacao in the title game, but it could have been really embarrassing for the tournament organizers. But remember, this was the very first edition. Everything ran smoothly, plenty of spectators, and people viewing from home. That's all you can ask from your inaugural edition. And this will continue for at least the next couple years. Panama is set to host next year, Colombia in 2027, and they plan on expanding. Aruba, Honduras, and Brazil have been mentioned as possible future participants. This may be how it is from now on. 4 teams in the Caribbean Series, 6, 8, or even more in the Series of the Americas. Or they could merge and we could once again see a large field of teams in the Caribbean Series, like we saw the last 2 years. There are advantages to both. I think most of us want to see it go back to a large field of teams at the Caribbean Series, like we saw in recent years. 9 teams in 2023, 8 teams in 2024. As long as they have at least 2 venues they can use. Could have as many as 12 teams. 2 6-team groups. Groups play at separate venues. Each venue has a morning, afternoon, and evening game. The 4 permanent members of the Caribbean Series, the 6 leagues that took part in last week's Series of the Americas, plus 2 more out of Brazil, Aruba, Honduras, or Guatemala. Not Japan Breeze. I'm hoping this is the only time they do this. Years from now, we can all look back at 2025 as that one time a Japanese team played at the Caribbean Series. But one time only. That's my hope, but there is talk of not only inviting Japan Breeze back again in 2026, but also inviting a Korean team. I don't know what they hope to accomplish by inviting uncompetitive teams from Asia to a tournament that is meant for Caribbean teams. I hope they change their mind on this. Even if it's just the 4 permanent members next year, at least it would be more of a Caribbean Series next time. Maybe the 2 tournaments could coexist as upper and lower divisions, with pro-rel between the 2. 6 teams in the Caribbean Series, 6 teams in the Series of the Americas. The 2 teams that fail to reach the semis of the Caribbean Series get demoted. The 2 teams that reach the championship game in the Series of the Americas get promoted. Of course, Mexico, Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, and Venezuela would try to ensure that they always remain in the Caribbean Series, since they are the permanent members. That would make things difficult, especially if the 2 guest teams reach the gold medal game, but I'm sure they could eventually work something out. Unfortunately, I'd say the most likely scenario for the future is status quo. The Caribbean Series had never really been inclusive up until the last few years, and even then it never included every country. Someone was always missing. 2023 had 9 countries, but Nicaragua wasn't there. Nicaragua finally appeared in 2024, but Colombia and Cuba were left out. I don't expect a Caribbean Series with all baseball-playing countries anytime in the future. 2 tournaments, 2 champions. And it's a shame, really, because it doesn't feel like we're getting a true champion of the Caribbean this year. Sure, the 4 strongest countries are all in the Caribbean Series, but in the last 10 editions, Cuba, Panama, and Colombia all won the Caribbean Series 1 time each. This year, Panama won the Series of the Americas. Maybe they could have won the Caribbean Series too. But we'll never know. On the other side of the world, you have the Australian Baseball League's Championship Series to start off February. Not exactly a new thing. The ABL relaunched in 2010. It's continued year after year, expanded from 6 to 8 teams, then contracted back to the original 6. Never a big thing in Australia, but always enough people supporting it to keep it running. Average attendance usually right around 1,000 per game. The Championship Series just ended there on Saturday, February 1st, with the Canberra Cavalry capturing their first Claxton Shield in 12 years, with a 2-game sweep over the Perth Heat. Over 3,000 in attendance for the final game. That followed one of their most successful regular seasons ever, an 8% year-over-year increase in attendance. The Melbourne Aces set a team attendance record, averaging 2,614 per game. Over 44,000 unique users tuned in to the ABL streaming service Baseball Plus in January alone. In the last 15 years, there's been doubt if this league would even make it. The previous version of the ABL did not. But now there's no doubt we will see the ABL every winter. It's not going anywhere. But the problem has always been that the ABL is all alone, far away from the other winter leagues of the Caribbean. Sure, there's winter baseball in Japan and Taiwan, but not on the level of the ABL. The Australian champion has no one else to play after they win the Claxton Shield. The Australian February tradition lately has been for the national team to bring its players together for a 3-game series versus the Hanwha Eagles. That, by the way, will take place this year from February 14th to the 16th in Melbourne. But the ABL is no longer the only winter baseball in the Eastern Hemisphere. Baseball United will be holding the UAE series in Dubai from the 14th to the 16th of February. 2 franchises will take the field for the first time: the Arabia Wolves, based in Dubai, and the Mideast Falcons, based in Abu Dhabi, meeting up in a 3-game series, featuring some former big-name big leaguers like Robinson Cano, Pablo Sandoval, and Didi Gregorius, as well as several other former MLB and NPB players. There are no plans right now for the ABL and Baseball United champions meeting in some sort of Eastern Hemisphere Championship Series. You can't help but imagine what that would be like, though. The ABL is stocked with minor league prospects, high single-A or double-A prospects that may be a year or 2 away from appearing at the major league level. Also young players from NPB, KBO, and CPBL who've already reached the top level. In Baseball United, the names that stick out are the ones that reached the highest level years ago, some who were very successful. So we'd look at it as a team of young players on their way up versus a team of older players on their way down. It would make for an interesting matchup. But February baseball in the Middle East is this year only. The plan is for the first regular season of Baseball United to take place next fall and not continue into the new year. This is a good move. If they decided to run their season parallel to the other winter leagues, they'd have to compete with them for players, and that would be a losing battle. Players from Latin America are happy to go back and play in their home countries. Major league teams are fine with sending their prospects to the ABL. By holding a quick 6-week season from late October to early to mid-December, players can participate in a full Baseball United season, then get back for the second half and the playoffs in another winter league. We already see guys doing this by playing the first half in Mexico, then going over to Puerto Rican League, or starting the season in Venezuela and finishing it out in Colombia, or something like that. The reason is leagues like Colombia and Puerto Rico don't start until November, while Mexico, Venezuela, Dominican Republic start in early October. Baseball United may also be able to get some players who otherwise wouldn't play anywhere in the winter. Some players are hesitant to commit to a league where they'll have to play October to December, playoffs in January, maybe Caribbean Series in February, then have to report to spring training a few weeks later. It takes up their whole offseason. With Baseball United, they can play a quick season, home by Christmas, and a shorter offseason, but they don't have to give it up completely. Right now, we can't say for sure if Baseball United will even make it. They ran a successful national team tournament last fall, the Arab Classic, with 9 different countries from the Middle East and South Asia. Good-sized crowds, mostly Western expats, but a considerable number of fans native to the region. But that's a national team tournament. A whole season of baseball, played by city-based clubs, is a harder sell. This month's UAE series will be a step further in that direction. UAE residents embrace the Arab Classic. Now we see how well they support a couple of the new franchises playing in a series. Then next fall, the big test for baseball in the UAE, when all 5 franchises play the inaugural season. If that works, then they can start to think about playing in all the other countries in the region. They've got franchises based in India, Pakistan, and Saudi Arabia. Don't know if those are all going to work or not. They may try out a few different cities in a few different countries. Try to make it work. If it doesn't, start over somewhere else. As long as they have the 2 ball clubs in the UAE consistently drawing fans, they can have that as their base while they try to build up a following in other countries. And it seems like there are enough fans in the UAE to make that a reality. Pretty safe to say that Baseball United will exist in some form in the Middle East and South Asia. though not as big as they envisioned when this project got started. Then, when Baseball United is stable and operating in a few different countries, they can think about holding a club championship with the Australian League. An optimistic window for that would be 5 years from now. Since Baseball United wants to be done early so as not to compete with other winter leagues, a Caribbean-style championship series where they crown a champion in January and all meet in February won't work there. It'd probably work best if the previous season's ABL champion meets the Baseball United champion in mid-December. That way the Baseball United players can still be done before Christmas, and it just requires one ABL team to take one weekend off. And that's just 2 league champions. Naturally, you'd hope to build it up to something as big as what they have in the Caribbean. But in the near future, there won't be any Eastern Winter Leagues that can compare to these two. The Philippines launched a new league last year, but that's a summer league, and I'm not too confident in the success of Liga Baseball Philippines, given the country's record of failed leagues in the past. My grand vision for that part of the world would be a 4-team club championship series, ABL and Baseball United, to be joined by a Southeast Asian champion. Philippines, Thailand, Indonesia, Hong Kong, maybe a few others, all have their champions meet and crown a single Southeast Asian champion to move on to the big series. The 4th team would come from Africa. The African continent would have 3 different leagues. South Africa would have a league of its own. 3 East African countries where baseball has recently made big gains. Uganda, Tanzania, and Kenya would have their own league. Then another league in West Africa, Nigeria, Burkina Faso, Ghana, Benin. By the way, the next country I'll be doing a video about is baseball in Benin. Look for that later this month. The champions from those 3 leagues meet up and crown a single African champion. The champions from Africa, Southeast Asia, Australia, and the Middle East/South Asia meet in what we would call the Eastern Series, in Dubai, Perth, Manila, Cape Town, wherever. After that, if there's still time, the champion of the Eastern Series meets the champion of the Caribbean Series in a World Winter Baseball Championship Series. But now I'm starting to talk about leagues that don't even exist yet, in countries where baseball gets very little funding. If it's ever going to happen, it won't be for a few more decades. Okay, that's the Winter Leagues. Then for the Summer Leagues, there's the Baseball Americas Champions League. That first took place in 2023. Champions from the Cuban National Series, American Association, Mexican Summer League, and the Colombian Winter League met in Mexico in the fall. The Fargo-Moorhead Redhawks beat Colombia's Caimanes de Barranquilla for the inaugural title. The second edition is scheduled for this April, from the 8th to the 13th, once again in Mexico. 6 teams participating: the 2024 champions of the Cuban National Series, American Association, LMB, Nicaragua's Summer League, Puerto Rico's Summer League, and Curaçao's Summer League. When you think about summer leagues, you probably think about MLB, NPB, KBO, CPBL, but none of them will be taking part and probably never will. The only major summer leagues involved are Mexico's LMB and Cuba's National Series, and the summer leagues of Nicaragua, Puerto Rico, and Curaçao are not their highest levels of competition. They fall well short of the talent scene in their respective winter leagues. It would be nice to see the CPBL take part in this. That league is about on par with the LMB, and a championship game between Diablos Rojos and the CTBC brothers would definitely be worth seeing. But the CPBL season is already a week underway by that time. They don't want to interrupt their 120-game schedule to fly out to Mexico, having to take more than a week off. LMB's got a 90-game schedule, but it's a lot easier since it's just 1 out of 20 teams that'll be taking the week off, and that one team will be playing on their home field for the Baseball Americas Champions League. It would be even harder for one of the other 3 to participate. NPB plays a 143-game schedule, KBO 144, MLB 162, and the talent gap between the leagues is a little too much. Among the current 6 teams, you've got 2 definite tiers: the Cuban, Mexican, and American Association champs at the top, and the Nicaraguan, Puerto Rican, and Curaçaoan teams far below them. Now compare MLB and the American Association, and you'll see my point. Though there is that disparity between the top 3 and bottom 3 in the 6 teams for this year's Champions League, it does seem like a good competition they've put together. Could add the champion from Panama's Summer League in future editions too. Europe has its own Champions League, and the champion from Europe could face the champion from the Americas someday. And it wouldn't be too surprising if a European team like Neptunus, Parma, Drossi, or Heidenheim were to make a run for the title, knocking off Rojos or Las Tunas in the final. As for MLB, NPB, KBO, and CPBL, the best bet would be to bring back the Asian Series, have NPB, KBO, and CPBL crown a single champion, then try to arrange a World Championship game between the Asian champion and the World Series champion. And that's probably never going to happen. First of all, the Asian series failed because the three countries, especially Japan, didn't care for an Asian club championship. They see the Japan series, Korean series, and Taiwan series as the end, the final. Same way Americans view the World Series. Second, it would make the season way too long. Perhaps the biggest reason people in those countries feel like their own country's championship series is the final is because they've just gone through a regular season well over 100 games, and the postseason, including a championship series that may have gone a full 7 games. The season's got to end at some point. Think about the players, too. Imagine someone playing in the WBC, followed by a 162-game MLB season, up to 20 games in the postseason, and then being asked to play a little more. Players will get worn out. If this ever does happen, it won't be on an annual basis. And as much as I'd like to see the champions from the best leagues in the world face off, I don't think it's ever going to happen. So while I have a grand plan for a World Winter Baseball Championship, I don't see the same for the summer leagues. There's the World Series, Japan Series, Korean Series, Taiwan Series, and for the rest of the world there's the Champions League of the Americas and Europe. But that's just what I think. Let us know what you think down in the comments. That's all for this one, and until next time, this is Baseball International. See ya!